Hello and welcome back to the Living on Lemonade podcast. I am your host, Lauren. I have had some stuff on my mind lately, let me tell you. And although I've kind of been in my head about it a bit, it's been a good thing. It's not that I've been lost with it, but I feel like I've just been very inquisitive or like reflective. I don't know. I feel like there's a better word for it. Introspective, I think is the word I'm looking for. Kind of going inward, and I get these kind of, I guess, hits of wisdom, and I start to get curious about them. And yeah, been down bleh, can't talk today. I've been down a bit of a rabbit hole with some stuff. And I thought I would maybe share a little bit of it with you, and maybe some of it will resonate with you, or one piece will resonate with you, and then that's just that's why I'm here, right? To share some stuff and make people feel like they're not alone. Where to start? After my dad passed, I think, well, I've talked about it before. I started to get the inspiration and the what I would call a soul-led pull to start not only a podcast, but some like put together some courses and maybe do a little bit of coaching, like one-on-one work with people, and just have conversations and help people move through difficult times and create more self-awareness and help them to get out of their head and into their body. And while that kind of that launched me on this journey, and since then I've started to dive more into topics because I think it's important. I didn't go to university, like I went to college for photojournalism, but I didn't if I had gone to university, I would have studied psychology because I love psychology. I love medicine. Probably if I had the marks for it and the drive from an early age, maybe I would have gone into the medical field or something. I love learning about how the body works, and when I know someone going through some medical stuff, I ask like a million questions. So I'm a wealth of bleh, I can't I'm sorry, I cannot talk today. I am a wealth of knowledge in a few areas just based on my own experience, but there has to be more to it, I think, if we're going to be more formal in educating other people about stuff. I do use my life experience kind of as a starting point, and then I start to explore the topics a little bit more formally. I start to read books, I take courses. Uh, yeah, I just read a lot online and stuff, and get books from the library or whatnot. And one topic that I got really interested in that kind of melds together psychology and biology, like, uh, yeah, how our body works and stuff, is the nervous system. I started getting really interested in how it not only how it works, but how much it influences our everyday life and all the choices that we make and how we navigate our everyday life. And it's been so interesting. I feel like I've scratched through a couple layers of the surface. There's so much deeper that I want to go with it in order to help people, but it's a start. And the kind of inspiration I've gotten lately, I think goes a layer deeper. And I haven't I I'm trying to really think. Like I haven't really substantiated it with anything that I've read or heard, but it's just, do you ever get like just information comes to you in one form or another? Sometimes it's a knowing, sometimes you like hear it sounds like your own voice in your head, but it doesn't feel like your own thoughts. You guys are gonna think I'm crazy, but I'm not. Uh, but it's just like these thoughts come to you and it's like, "Ooh, that's interesting." Or maybe you're sitting quietly or just in one of those non-thinking moments, you're driving or something, or you're in the shower, and you just get like a picture in your head as if you would, like if I were to tell you to close your eyes and imagine a rainbow in the sky. Like you could bring that to mind without having your eyes open. So it's the same idea. It's just that it's unprompted. The image or the video just kind of like pops into your head the way that your imagination would work when you were a kid and just like things come to you. I still get that and I call that my intuition, my kind of inner wisdom or whatever you want to call it. There's so many different ways to look at it from different philosophies and stuff, but the thing that's been the strongest for me lately, I think goes a layer deeper than the nervous system, and it really comes down to one word: authenticity, and the importance of living an authentic life, and how as I started to kind of break through these layers of these different subjects I've been deep diving into in order to teach other people about them and fully embody it myself, the I really thought and in some ways the nervous system is still kind of it's one of the foundational pieces of yeah, how we operate our life. But I think even deeper than that, because something has to activate the nervous system in order to like initiate a response, and then we react to that. And really what I think it is, or what I'm kind of thinking lately is coming back to ourselves and our authenticity. And maybe it's not even coming back. Maybe we've never known ourselves because we've been so conditioned by external sources, external validation. Like this is where people pleasing and boundaries comes in. If you're not familiar with the term people pleasing, this is when we go out of our way to make others feel comfortable ahead of our own. Like we'll put ourselves in an uncomfortable position to make someone else feel comfortable. And that really goes against our own authenticity. It goes against our own boundaries. Boundaries are what we set in order to maintain our health in like mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, but also to honor our values, honor our integrity, and honor our authenticity. And when I think back to being a kid, and even now, there's patterns that I am starting to shed because I think like I have held this way of being for my whole life in different times and for different reasons. But I am at a point where it's really frustrating, it's really uncomfortable, and I'm just really over it. And that one of the things is speaking my truth. And that's a deep one. For anyone who is starting to resonate with this, oh my gosh, it is like I don't even have the the words to describe it. I went through more than a decade of feeling like in a large capacity I could not speak my truth. I could not be honest with someone I loved because I was afraid that if I told them how I truly feel, if I I'm not even coming off nights. I don't know, like I have no excuse for this. Uh, so bear with me. If I told them how I truly felt, that they would one, not be comfortable with it. This is where the people pleasing is. I sacrificed my own voice, my own truth. And it was from a place of love. It wasn't to bash the person, but I sacrificed it so that A, they would feel comfortable and we wouldn't get into a conflict. And B, because they had given me an ultimatum years before, and I had a fear that they would basically abandon me. I think that's probably the best way, yeah, the best word to use. I think that word can be, it can feel really heavy, I guess. I like to use the word energy, but when you really think about it, if you're going through a hard time or someone tells you bad news and it just like feels heavy, like there's an energy to it, right? The energy, you walk into a room and it's very solemn. It's like there's a heavy energy to it. Or you walk into a room and someone has thrown you a surprise party and there's an energy to it. There's an excitement. You feel it in your body. So that's what I mean when I talk about energy. It's not just to be like woo. Um for me it's substantial, so I don't take the use of the word lightly, but abandonment, I think it can have kind of a heavy energy or a heavy tone to it. Maybe that's a better word. And I don't mean it in a dramatic way. I just mean it that um I feel like if I had told my truth and that person wasn't ready to see it in, see it in the truth in a light, in how it relates to their own life. Maybe abandonment's not the correct, I thought of something better, like they would turn their back on me, which I guess is still a form of abandonment, but I don't know. I have a hard time kind of articulating that a little bit. It's still really hard for me to process in the aftermath. um But where I'd like to go with this is when we quiet our voice, when we muffle our voice is part of that, um, that greater thing that makes us us. You can call it soul, you can call it our spirit, um, yeah, like, whatever philosophy or kind of background you have and whatever word that suits you. I know with Phil Stutz of the he did that documentary with, Jonah Hill, and he in his book Coming Alive, I listened to it, it's really wonderful, it has some wonderful tools on how to navigate life and basically our ego. I'm trying to remember the word that he used, but in my own translation, I would use the word ego. And he talks about a life force. And that's a common word used in different philosophies and beliefs and stuff. Life force energy is common with like yogic practice, but it's basically the force or the energy or whatever word you want to use that makes us unique and different from everyone else, but connects us to all that is. You could call it like the stardust, right? We all have like stardust. We're made up of stardust, and energy cannot be created or destroyed. It just is. We are energy. We have energy. Our brain relies on uh electricity to fire neurons. Our heart relies on electric current to beat and to send signals all around our body. So when I talk about energy, I'm just talking about in terms of like how we exist, how we function, how we pick up on things outside of ourselves. And I think when that we muffle different parts of us, and if we're muffling every part of us, it's even more crippling. But do you know, like, think of a time when you wanted to speak out about something. Maybe you wanted to stand up for yourself, or you wanted to stand up for someone else, and something held you back. Maybe you thought, "Oh my gosh, I don't want to rock the boat or like stir the pot." So you didn't say the thing. But think back to that moment. How did you feel in your body? For me, it feels like constrictive, and it's just like, it feels like something's trapped and like I want to let it out, but I can't. And I can tell you that anyone who has experienced this over a prolonged period of time, you kind of lose a piece of yourself because you're not honoring that authentic part of yourself. And in the aftermath of my dad's death, there's been a lot that has happened. It's been so long since I've spoken my truth and used my voice, and I kind of have to go find that piece of me again and figure out how to use my voice. And I can say this podcast has been very helpful because I can kind of, I hope these aren't too much of a, I'm not trying to just rant because I don't always find that productive, but to be able to speak about these topics and, yeah, speak my truth. It's so freeing. I highly recommend it. Find someone you can confide in and talk about these things. You start to like open up that like I almost want to say like like you're just opening up a doorway, a hallway of being able to speak and express yourself. And I think that helps us connect to those deeper parts of ourselves when we have the opportunity and it feels safe to talk about the things that are on your mind, on your heart, and feel safe about it. So to to go back to where I was in that authenticity, I really think that when we muffle those deeper parts of us, how we feel, how we feel about life in our own identity and how we fit in or belong. Again, there's a difference. I am working to belong in this world and find my tribe, my people, that I can show up with, and to in a way that I'm just me and there's no people pleasing, there's strong boundaries. People just they know what to expect when I show up in this world and they accept me for who I am. I don't have to be make myself small so that people will be okay with who I am. And if people think I'm too much, I'm just not their person. And have- I have started to reflect so the people that I think are maybe too much, or there's just something about them that irks me, I start to get curious about it. And I think like what part of me am I not allowing to be free, or have I decided that this behavior is wrong? And I start to get a little bit curious about it because then I can have more compassion and empathy towards that person, and the triggers or the way I feel irked by them, it kind of starts to dissipate a bit. Um, so when we can, I think when we can live fully authentically, if that's even possible, I think there's a lot of work to do because society really tries to condition us in so many ways. Not only society, but social media and the expectation of like how we need to show up, and wanting to have so many likes for validation, and all of these things outside of ourselves we forget, or we just don't even learn who we are inside because we're too busy exploring all of the things outside of us to get validation to say that we are worthy or we're enough. And we can never, that is a dangerous thing to do. And I'm not saying I don't do it, because I 100% do. We all do. We're human. Like there's no shame around it, no guilt, no shame. um but as soon as we put our self-worth and our enoughness in the hands of something outside ourselves, that's where things can get dangerous. And unstable, right? Because we can't rely on someone to always make us feel whole because maybe that person passes away or is no longer in our life. And then what, right? We're always starting from scratch and we're always looking for the next thing. When we can get clear on who we are in our full authenticity and accept that and love that, we will always know how to show up as ourselves. And it doesn't matter what's going on and what people are saying around us. That will never, it won't shake us, at least not to the extent as if we are looking outside of ourselves for that validation. And the piece that I wanted to fit this into the puzzle of what have been feeling lately is deeper than the deeper than that baseline of how our nervous system works is when we do things that muffle our own authenticity, we start to feel it in our body. It creates a reaction. We feel that like, oh, I just want to get it out. And when we feel like we're not, our voice isn't being heard, or people aren't understanding us or accepting us, it creates a reaction, right? It activates our nervous system because when we feel unsafe to show up as who we are, or we're afraid that we might say the wrong thing, there's a bit of there's nerves, there's anxiety around that. And that's our nervous system. That's it being activated. And then it just like once our nervous system's activated, whether it's in a big way or kind of like low grade that we're not even really conscious to it, but you have that little nervousness to like say the thing to the person, that's our nervous system picking up on those subtle body hints that we're putting out by not being able to be ourselves. And down the road, as we know from this slaying stress masterclass, there are physical symptoms that tell us that our nervous system's activated. If it's more acute, we're going to get sweaty palms, but our breathing is changed. We have shallow, short breaths. So if you ever notice yourself, as you just check in with yourself once in a while every day, if you notice that your breathing's really shallow and shorter, that's your nervous system's activated and you're not even conscious of it. So take some deep breaths. Tell your body again that it's safe. You can look around. Is there any threat? If there's not, give that signal back to your body that there's a word I want to use, but I can't think of it. Feedback. Give that feedback back to your body like, hey, I'm okay. Use your conscious understanding to tell your body that it's okay by taking a few deep breaths. And and then there's it just we do something that gets out of alignment of our authenticity, of our integrity, of our values. We get that nervousness, that anxiety, because it just doesn't feel right. We want to be able to say the thing. We want to be able to do the thing that feels in an alignment. And we don't honor that. We get those feelings of nerves or anxiety that activates our nervous system. And then we end up getting physical symptoms, right? Because the more activated our nervous system is, our digestive tract starts to not work as well, because when our nervous system's activated, it thinks that our body's in grave danger. Our brain and our body don't know the difference between perceived and real danger, so it's going to have the same reaction. We have to be able to have the awareness to control it. And this is why I started this path of like sharing my tools. I just didn't realize at the time. I just wanted, and this is, I guess, like my start was kind of surface level, but now I'm like going down this huge rabbit hole of like, holy crap, this all makes sense. This is all leading to helping people find, either for the first time or reconnect with, their authenticity and who they are, what makes them different from every other person on this planet, and to first identify and then to like hone in on it and embrace it and just like be themselves, because there's nothing more crippling than trying to show up as someone you aren't. And I think this is very also relevant too with it being June and Pride Month, right? And the fact that there's an entire um, group in society that has for many generations been muffled and hasn't been able to live their truth, and we can see the impact and the consequence of that. And I'm so glad that people are starting to speak out and show up in their authenticity and inspire others to show up in the same way, and that those of us who maybe aren't part of this community but fully support it are standing up and trying to make policy changes, right? So there's a ripple effect. We start to show up as ourselves, we inspire others to do the same, and then we can collectively just stop playing all the games that society wants us to play to create all this separation, this like divide and conquer stuff. Um, I've just never understood it. And this comes from a place of like being the kid who largely didn't fit in. I just kind of beat to the I danced or walked or I guess I could say danced to the beat of my own drum. And so I know so deeply how that feels, and not being accepted and spending most of my life trying to fit in, meld so that people like me, but it's not really me because I'm just like, what do I have to do to make people like me? And I think as we age, we start to strip those layers, and now I'm just like, how do I find myself and just show up and people love me for who I am and be inspired for who I am and belong. And people want to be around me because of how I show up to the world in my most authentic way. I hope a part of that made sense. And it's kind of like those light bulb moments that have been going off in my head lately, that it's like I'm on this mission and it started as one thing. And the more that I deep dive, it's becoming so much more beautiful. And there's even more impact that I know I can create by going down this path, by doing the research and the learning of the nervous system. But then all this information that's coming to me randomly, I don't know if it's like in my dreams or sometimes I just get like this weird, like this understanding. It's like, holy crap, authenticity. It triggers the nervous system. It really comes down to how can we show up as ourselves? How can we know who we are in the deepest, most beautiful ways? What is the magic inside of us? How can we discover and unlayer that? And how can we make sure that we show up that way every day and share our magic? Because that's when we know we are living a life in alignment with that deepest part of who we are and why we're here, who we came here to be. So with that, I think I'll end the episode. I would love to know your thoughts on this, if anything kind of resonates. It's such a new concept for me, putting these pieces together and having these like light bulb aha moments that I haven't really verbalized it with anyone. So this is kind of the first time. And I would love to know if I'm not the only one. I'm sure I'm not, but anyway, you can find me in the Living on Lemonade with Lauren Facebook group, Facebook community. The next masterclass is June 19th at 8 p.m. And we're going to talk about shadow self and inner child. It's called Discovering the Depths. That's the next masterclass. I'm working nights tonight, so I have to lay down soon, but I have been recording the training modules for my self-study program called Create Your Calm. Again, it's kind of the surface layer of like, here's some tools so that you can learn how to get out of your head. If you've been kind of existing from a place of overdrive and like largely in your head, largely in your like thinking space, this course will start to introduce you to different topics that help you to move out of your head and connect back with your body, because this is when we start to, our body will tell us things. There's such an intelligence of, it's more than just feeling hunger pains and thirsty and when your bladder needs to be emptied, right? It's the more we can learn to acknowledge and be embodied like in our body, the more we learn, and then we start to explore a deeper awareness, and that's this whole self-awareness thing, and this is when we can start to break those patterns of conditioning and all the things, and it's just this gets to the that root of the authenticity and the nervous system. So this is kind of the introduction. If you are in a place where you're sick and tired of being sick and tired. You feel like you're in your own way, you hold yourself back, you want to be able to handle life, not just like get by and survive, but you want to learn how to thrive and you don't know where to start. These are wonderful topics that create that awareness and start to lead you along that path. And then as I go, there's going to be more trainings, and I think a bigger container, maybe like a group coaching or like a learning program that has private coaching with it so that we can actually just dive into specifically what's going on with you. But that's down the road. In the meantime, it'll be ready in the next couple weeks. It's going to be $111. If you're interested, send me a message. Either find me on Facebook or find me on Instagram. MZZ Ms. Lauren, Lauren, Gilhula, Gilhula, Ms. Lauren Gilhula. I'm on Instagram. You can find me there. Would love to know what you think. If you listen to the podcast on the Podbean, you can even leave comments too on the thing, or I guess on Apple Podcasts as well. So with that, I hope life is going well. You're hanging in with whatever's happening, and I just had to share that. This is helping heal that all those years where I couldn't speak my truth. So this is very exciting. And if you're still listening, I, I'm so grateful, honestly, so blessed, so grateful to have you along this journey with me. So take care, and we'll see you inside the next episode. Bye.